What is going on, everyone? This is Yasir. Listen, we're back live today. We're going to talk more about jobs, job searching, and everything job related, right? Today, I've got a very special topic for you, and it's all about virtual interviews. We're going to be talking about how to ace the virtual interview, and particularly about what some of the mistakes are that people are making in virtual interviews. Just to give you some context, especially now because of this whole COVID-19 situation, just about every interview, I would say most of the interviews happening right now are going to be virtual. So chances are, if you're getting offered a job, if you've been called in for an interview, it's probably going to be over Zoom, it's going to be over Microsoft Teams, it's going to be over some other video conferencing software. Now, the difference between traditional interviews and virtual interviews is a lot of people aren't super comfortable being in front of the camera in the first place, right? They're not comfortable being in front of the camera. And on top of that, you have a whole panel of people. You have like 5-10 different people staring at you. You don't really know where to look, so it can be very, very intimidating. So today I want to talk about the top 10 mistakes people make, or the top 10 tips that I have for people to overcome the virtual interview barrier, right? So I feel like the biggest issue, and just to give you some context as well, I sit through maybe 6 interviews a week, and that's all virtual interviews. So I get to see what people do in these virtual interviews. I get to see where they're struggling with. I get to see what kind of things hold people back and why they're not getting jobs. And I can give you a little bit of an idea of that as well, right? Now, just before we get into any of that, if you're new to the channel, all about job searching on this channel. That's what we talk about. I specialize in working with young, ambitious professionals. I help you find a job right out of college. If you're interested in those kinds of videos, hey, subscribe to the channel, like the video, follow me on my Instagram and my Facebook, and we'll get right into it. Okay, so I want to start with the very first tip here. Now, if you're going into a virtual interview, one of the things I can tell you is technical difficulties are bound to happen. They're going to happen. They're maybe not in your first interview, maybe in your second interview, but out of 5 interviews, I think at least 25 to 40% of the time there tends to be some sort of technical difficulty. Whether it's someone trying to get into the meeting and they can't figure out how to get into the meeting, they don't have the meeting link, or maybe the link isn't letting them in, or it's because their audio isn't working, or maybe the video isn't working, or maybe they're going in and out. There's going to be some sort of technical issue happen. It happens so often, and a lot of times, like when you're going in for an interview, you want to be on time, right? You don't want to be late. What happens is people don't have these technical things figured out in advance. They don't check the link. They don't check the software. They don't check whether there's mics working. They don't check whether their video is working. And by the time they figure all of that out, what ends up happening is they actually are late for the interview, or maybe they show up, all stressed out and everything. And when you're going in for an interview, you don't want to be stressed out. You want to be there in your in a calm sense where you can explain yourself, where you can talk about your experiences. That's the state you want to be in, right? So before you go in for your interview, always double check in advance, turn on the link, see if your microphone's working, see if your video's working, and then always have your application, whatever it is, your Teams or your Zoom, have it installed on a separate device. So in case your first device is having some audio issues, you can't figure it out, immediately you can hop onto your iPad, you can hop onto your phone, you can hop onto something else. You don't want to just drop out and then the interview is wondering what's happening, right? So all the technical issues, this might sound basic, but guys, I'm telling you, out of the 6 interviews I do every single week, about 40%, maybe not 40%, but 20 to 40% of people have some sort of technical difficulties going on with them, okay? That's the first one. How's the stream going, by the way? I just want to make sure all the latency and everything is good here. Looks good. Everyone's following me. Cool. Now, the second thing I want to get into is just which device you're using as well, right? Ideally, I would prefer you use your computer, use your laptop. If you have a desktop, use a desktop, whatever, as long as it's got a webcam. The reason I wouldn't really recommend using a mobile phone is because a lot of times you don't really know how to put things on silent while you're on a call. So if you're on a call and someone's messaging you, you know what it's going to sound like? You're going to be saying something like, I'm really interested in this opportunity. You don't want that happening in the middle of your interview. And I'm telling you, it happens more times than you think. You might be going into it, and then, your friend's calling you up. Hey, bro, did you catch the last episode of whatever? It happens all the time. So make sure whatever application you're using, every other application is put on silent, because that vibration, it can really make or break it. And the thing is, some people get messages, or maybe they get calls. And if you get a call, by the way, it cuts out the whole interview. It cuts out the video, and just your phone just goes into that call mode. So make sure you're, set on airplane mode or something like that, and it's set to silent. Even if you're getting messages, you can kind of see you go up on the phone and flick the notification up. You just don't want any distractions during your interview. You want to have as less of a distraction, as distraction free of an environment as you possibly can, so that you can focus on your interview, right? Speaking of distractions, I want to talk about the next one, which is just the background. Okay, now some of the interviews I've been in, it's been strange because you have to be aware of your background. Like right now, my background is kind of okay. It could be a little better. The more static it is, the better. Like if it's a white wall, that's perfect. That's, there's nothing driving attention away from you. Sometimes people have like their TV in the back. Maybe their kids are running around. Maybe someone's going in and out of the room. Maybe you can see their clothes all over the place. Maybe their room isn't all tidy. You don't want that kind of background, do you? You want to look professional, even though you're at home right now. I understand it, but do as much as you can to keep it clear. Anything that can distract the hiring managers from you is going to be a distraction, right? It's going to take away attention, because attention should be on you. You should be focusing on yourself. So try to have a static background, and just keep the attention on yourself. I think, and you have some of those virtual backgrounds as well, where you're in space or you're in Hawaii or whatever it is. Don't use any of those, guys. Like you don't have to use any of those. Okay, so be wary of your background. Super, super, super important. The next thing is what we got here. We've got, so one of the things now with the virtual interviews, in a real interview, of course, you can't bring a notepad, right? You can't bring all of your notes. You can't be super ready for the interview. Be prepared, guys, but do not be over prepared. What I mean by this is, so many times, suppose if I'm talking to you right now, right? And even now, if I'm reading my guidelines here, you can kind of tell I look away for a second, I look back, I look away, I look back. Sometimes what happens is people have notes on the side here, they have notes on the side here, they have their computer open in the back, and then if the interviewer is asking them a question, they're like scrambling between, okay, where did I put that? They're looking here, looking there. Guys, be prepared for your interview. It's always good to be prepared. Rehearse your answers in advance, but don't have notes in front of you, because even if you know the answer correctly, even if you can answer it, your mind will always direct to your safety boat, right? If you have notes in front of you, even if you know it, you won't want to go back into your mind and think of the answer. You'll just start looking at your notes. And too often I've seen people get completely thrown off. They just get nervous because they don't know where they put the answer. And then it's really easy to tell that someone's reading off of it, because sometimes they'll be talking to you and, hey, I'm really interested in a job. My qualifications are XYZ. I also have experience in ABC. I also have experience in FIG, whatever, So it just seems really unnatural to have notes around you. Be prepared, rehearse your answers, but I would never recommend relying on notes. Just like in public speaking, you should have your bullet points listed out for you, but never rely exclusively on reading out from a script or reading out from your notepad. Okay, I wouldn't recommend that at all. Maybe have your resume in front of you. That's good enough, just so you can use it as a bullet point. Okay. The other thing is, when you're going in for virtual interviews, you can't really make eye contact with people, right? There's no one in front of you, just staring at a camera. So the camera, like the lens right now, is your eye contact. You should be looking right at the lens. Now, imagine if I was on this live stream right now and I was looking here. If you're on a laptop on an interview, your camera is on the top and you've got the screen here. If I'm looking here and I'm talking, I'm like, I am super interested in this job. I want this job. This job is amazing. It fits my experience. Even though I'm super passionate about it, I'm not looking right into the camera. I'm not making eye contact. I'm looking away from it, right? So this is a mistake I see a lot of people make, because you'll see a couple of hiring managers on the screen at the same time, and you're kind of looking between them. You're like, which one should I focus on? Which one should I be talking to? And you avoid looking directly into the camera. This is super, super, super important, guys, because this is the only way you can actually make eye contact. So don't don't stare at the screen too much, right? Because again, like I know you want to see the response, and it's only natural to be talking to someone while looking at them. And when we're on Skype on our phones, we're usually just staring at the screen. But in virtual interviews, it's very different. And I can tell you guys, just the connection you have with people when you're not looking directly in the camera is very, very different. Because imagine if I'm not staring at you right now, I'm like staring into space. My point doesn't really get across, right? It's like, yeah, it's much more intimate if I'm looking directly at you. Of course, don't be this close, right? But yeah, make eye contact. It really makes your answers a whole lot better. Now, the next thing is, if you're going in for an interview, I understand you're working from home, still try to dress professionally. And it's not about, people right now are like this whole COVID situation. We should kind of tone back on all these formalities, and I totally get that. But if you have the opportunity to show employers that you are serious about the position, that you take this really seriously, this is really important to you, this is important enough that even though you're in your house, sitting in your living room or your computer desk, you're still dressing up, guys, do that, because it really goes the extra mile to show how professional you are. You came ready for the interview as well, okay? The other thing I want to note is, on top of this, if you are sitting in front of a computer, right? Suppose you're having your interview and you're on a computer, avoid having any tabs open on the computer. Kind of like having notes. Maybe you have the job description open. Maybe you have your Messenger open, your Facebook open. Guys, what happens is you end up getting distracted, right? Even if you don't want to get distracted, you'll see something on the tab. Maybe the news feed refreshes or whatever. You don't want to be clicking around, scrolling around. You want to make sure your focus is 100% right, lasered into the camera, right? That's the way you'll get their attention. And if you expect them to listen to you, if you expect them to have 100% focus on you, you should have 100% focus on them as well, okay? The other thing I want to mention is that if you look at me right now on where I'm in my camera, it's kind of cut off at the neck, right? Ideally, if I'm in a virtual interview, I want to back up a little bit so you can see my gestures as well. You can see my hand movement, because if you're really passionate about something, you're talking about your experience. I did this, I went here, I did that. You want to be able to use your gestures along with that as well, okay? But if you're too close to the camera like this, and believe me, guys, I see this happen. It's almost like someone's lying in bed and they've got their camera right up to their face. It's not very comfortable to talk to the hiring managers in an interview setting like this, being this close. I feel uncomfortable just being this close to the lens, right? So be a comfortable distance away from it, just enough so your gestures can, shine. You can explain your points. And just so you feel comfortable, you have enough room, right? So ideally, just at least to your chest level, so you can see your arms move around as well. Okay. By the way, this mic is pretty big, isn't it? But I hope the audio is good for you guys. I invested in this just so my live streams are much better. What do we got? We got next one. Yes. So the most important one, guys. This kind of goes back to my whole try not to use notes thing, because the one thing people look for in interviews, and this is not just virtual interviews, this is interviews in general, is how well can you bond with a team? How well can you fit in with a team? Can you joke around a little bit? Do you have a little bit of a personality? Because guys, every team has a team culture. Every single team has a certain dynamic, right? They're looking for certain people. Maybe they've got two people who are really high energy, one person who's kind of low energy, one person's kind of moderate. They've got a team dynamic. So they want to make sure when you fit into their team, how do you contribute to their team culture, right? So this is what they want to see in the interview. They want to make sure you have a personality. If you come there, they ask you a question, tell me 3 reasons why you're interested in a job. You say, reason number 1, this, reason number 2, this, reason number 3, this, and you're done. You're not really reflecting too much on your personality. Your questions might be great, your answers might be great, but guys, make conversation. These are people you're going to be working with. Take interest in them. Ask them about themselves. Tell me something about this. Or maybe you're explaining your role. It's like, yeah, one thing I noticed about this role is that it requires a lot of attention to detail. You're going to be doing a lot of documentation work. Am I correct about that? They'll say, yeah, you're absolutely correct. There's going to be a lot of that. Then you can say, yeah, definitely. So just to talk about my experience in my other role, I had this, that. So you can have a lot of their involvement in your answers as well. Keep it more conversational. The more robotic it is, the more difficult it tends to be for them to see you fitting into their organization, right? Now, suppose you've done all of these things, guys. The most important thing I would say once your virtual interview is done is just the follow-up. Guys, this is so crucial, right? Once you have the interview, what a lot of people tend to do is they just never call up the recruiter. They never do it, right? They're like, okay, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to see how long it takes for the recruiter to get back to me. I'll wait for their... I'm going to answer some of your questions in just a bit, right? I just want to get to this last tip here. So the recruiter might be... You have to reach out to them, because if they have interviewed you, say, past week, and you haven't reached out to them the next week, you might never know. You want to show them you're on top of your mind. You're still interested in the role. Maybe I would say not every single day. Don't reach out to your recruiter or your manager every day, but every 3 days, just kind of drop a message. Say, hey, I'm just reaching out to see what's going on with my application. I'm still really interested in. It happens so often that people interview and they just never call back to follow up, because you know what? If you're interviewing, there are probably 10, 15 other people who are also interviewing at the same time. So hiring managers are busy. They're thinking about a lot of different things, so their mind is kind of all over the place. You have to keep them a little bit engaged. And if you don't reach out to them, they'll kind of assume, is this person even interested? Maybe he's applying somewhere else. What's going on, guys? So this is one of the most important steps. Now, I just want to recap all the steps here. So we got number 1, download the application on multiple devices. So if one of them doesn't work, you have the other one. Always test out your technicalities beforehand. Number 2, if you're using your phone for your interview, make sure everything is on silent, guys. You want to make sure it happens, because you don't want that happening in the middle of your interviews. Trust me, I've had it happen. And especially if you're an interviewer like myself and you're wearing headphones and their phone is like, it just mashes up your brain. Number 3, be aware of your background. Have a static background. Make sure you don't have weird alligators in the background, or some stuff happening, construction and whatever. Try to be as less distracted as you can. Number 4, we've got be prepared, but do not use any notes. Be prepared. Do all the note stuff before you get on it. All the note stuff, it can happen prior to the interview. Once you're in the interview, have a conversation, guys, because you will fall back on those notes even if you don't want to. Just like a speech, even if you have it memorized, you will still look at your notes. Suppose you're going in for an exam, you know everything by heart, but you bring a cheat sheet, you will still look at a cheat sheet, because you will double guess, you will second guess yourself, you'll wonder if you're right or not, okay? Next thing is, when you're talking to the interviewer, you are talking to the lens, you're talking right to the camera. Don't look at the screen, because it looks like this. It does not look like you're making contact with people. It's less personal, right? Next up, we have, what do we have? Dress professionally. I would always say dress professionally. Usually I would be dressed like in dress shirt right now. Just got off some client meetings, but you know what? I got to relax. It's Thursday night myself. So usually wear a suit, wear a tie. You know what? Just bring out the big guns. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. What else we got? Yeah. Camera far enough. Usually at least your torso. Bring in your gestures. I'm going to talk a little bit about gestures as well later on. Do not come this close when you're in your interviews. And guys, it might seem like it's pretty obvious, but it's not. Believe me, I've seen people in interviews do this, where they're either using their phone and their phone is like this close and all you can see is like their face. It's not very professional. Just hold the camera a safe distance away from you. Okay, what else do we have? Be personable, have a conversation. I mentioned this. It's all about you. It's all about the team. Get to know the team. Get them to know you as well, because after all, you will be working with them. And then lastly, follow up as soon as your interview is over, or not as soon as, like 3 days later, call them up saying, hey, how did you think I did? Or when can I hear back from them? I'm really excited, blah, blah, blah. These are the top 10 tips I have for you guys for your virtual interviews. You follow these, I'm telling you, you're going to up your chances of virtual interview success significantly. Okay, now I'm going to get to some of your questions. I've got 3 up here. Aditya Kapoor asks, hey Yasir, will the virtual interviews be for student jobs? Actually, I was almost scammed on the pretext of virtual assessment tests. Oh, wow, I actually want to hear more about that, Aditya. How were you scammed, right? Because I think because of this whole virtual interview thing, a lot of these scam companies are really upping their game because they know everyone's online. They're just like, hey, how's it going? I saw your profile. You seem very interesting. In fact, you seem exactly like the kind of person we're looking for. Please put your personal information here and we'll kind of get back to you. So if that's what you're referring to, I can totally understand that. Just know that they will always call you first. They will never have a virtual interview right away. they will usually send you like an email saying, hey, we saw your resume, we're really interested in it, can we give you a call here? They'll give you a call to talk to you first. Once they talk to you, then they'll say, okay, we'll do virtual interviews. Now for part-time jobs, I feel like it depends on the kind of part-time job. If you have like a part-time digital agency position, that might be completely different. You can do that at home. But if you're working at a store, most likely your job itself is going to be at the store itself. I can imagine your interview being in person as well, but don't quote me on that. It entirely depends on them. But I feel like if you're a student right now, a lot of your jobs are going to be retail jobs, and they're most likely going to be in person because, again, your job itself involves being in person, right? All right, Vinayak Soma asks, hand gesture tips. Okay, so it's really difficult for me to explain hand gesture, but let me just give you a few examples. You see me using hand gestures all the time, right? I'm kind of all over the place with them. Only use them to support what you're saying, right? Now, a very good test for this is if you are able to demonstrate your message just through your actions, that means you're doing a pretty good job. So, for example, if I said the stock market is really high, I'm going to do something like this, right? That's just the motion of hands going up. And if I want to show how I decrease costs, you can say I decrease costs. So you have to find gestures that go with what you're saying. So you can say, I did a very big expansion for my company. The sales went up, and I made sure the costs were as low as possible when I was working with my team. So you can see the variation of gestures I'm using here depending on what your point is. And then also try to follow your tonality. If your sentence coming to an end, your gesture can be like this. If you're raising up the intensity of what you're saying, and then I really focused on and I just use my hands accordingly. It's really hard to tell you exactly how to do it, but a very good policy is, in general, when you're using gestures, try to have open palms, right? You don't want to have anything like this. You don't want to have the back of your hand facing them. Try to calm this down, because just looking at the palm, it's a very calming gesture, right? So I was here. This is my experience. I just want to let you know I have the experience you're looking for. I completely understand. You see how calming this is just to see your hand? So these are some of the gestures I'd recommend. And then, of course, when you're describing something, you say, I was working in this small panel, or I was working with 4 people. You can describe all these things by using the different gestures. And again, when you're in your virtual interviews, I think this is a really good question. When you're just speaking and you're completely idle, it's really kind of boring to look at. Like, think about YouTube videos where someone's just looking at the camera and not really making any motions. They're just talking to it. You're not going to watch it for too long, right? You're like, this guy's just been talking for 5 minutes now. It's boring. So just move around a little bit, have a little bit of animation, go in and out. You'll see a lot of jump cuts in these YouTube videos. But I'm going to be making a lot of videos about public speaking as well. I think that speaks more to it as well. So I'll get into that in later videos. Thank you very much for that question. Your other question is, I have my part-time job resume ready. Can you please have a look as it suggests me with some minor changes? Would really appreciate it. I would love to do that. Unfortunately, because of how many requests I get, I just don't have the time for that. If you are in Canada already, you're looking for a part-time job, I've talked to more than 100 people who are looking for part-time jobs, and I can guarantee you more than any other problem, the biggest problem they have is their resume. So I've actually made a full course on resume building. Every single thing you will ever need to know about making a resume is on that course. I will make a link. I'll send you a little link to that one. You can get it at a heavily discounted rate because you're my subscriber and I love my subscribers. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. Now let me know in the future, what kind of videos would you like to see? Did you like this live stream format? I feel like I can interact with people. I can actually understand what kind of problems you're having and what kind of issues we can solve, right? I'd love to do more of these live streams because I feel like it's a lot easier for me to just sit in front of the camera, talk to you guys instead of having to edit all that, right? Now, just to let you know, if you are in Canada, you've already graduated and you're looking for a full-time job, I'm doing a mastermind group where I train you step by step in front of your resume. We're going to talk about your interview skills. We're going to talk about job searching strategies. I want to find you the fastest possible way to find you a job after graduation. This is an investment. It's not free and it's certainly not cheap. So if you want to work with me, let me know. I'm going to have a link in the description as well where you can get in touch with me. hopefully get on a phone call. Let me know where you're struggling the most and see if I can help you find a full-time job. Okay, so that's all I got for you. Make sure you follow me on Instagram.com/YasirKhanCoaching, or also follow me on my Facebook page, YasirKhan.com/YasirKhanCareerCoaching. That's all I got for you guys. Oh yes, and my LinkedIn, LinkedIn.com/APakistaniAbroad. I should probably change it, but I haven't. I will eventually. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments, because I like hearing from you. I don't just like talking to my camera without knowing what's going on. Let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see next. And if you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.